Hey everyone, for today's video, I'll be guiding you over how to build Lifeng, who will be one of the best physical supports in Arknights Endfield. For his kits, in short, he's able to apply vulnerability stacks with his battle skill by knocking the enemy down if they have a vulnerability stack, and if they don't, he's able to apply a physical susceptibility debuff alongside a vulnerability stack. His combo skill grants a link buff when he does a final strike on an enemy with a physical susceptibility or that has been breached, and his ultimate is able to knock enemies down twice in a large AoE, which makes it a really good source for vulnerability inflictions and stagger. It can also do a lot more damage if he has a link buff, because the link buff increases the damage done by the next battle skill or ultimate, and because his ultimate does another instance of powerful physical damage if he has a link buff. He can also gain a 0.10% attack buff for every point of intellect, and a 0.15% attack buff for every point of will, similarly to how he gets a 0.50% attack buff for every point of agility, aka his main attribute, and a 0.20% attack buff for every point of strength, aka his second attribute, which means that he'll get a massive attack buff and he can still make use of other attributes that aren't his main or secondary attributes. And he can do an additional instance of physical damage every time he knocks down an enemy, which should account for a considerable amount of damage since he's constantly knocking enemies down. Do you want to buy more Ori geometry to play Arknights Endfield with the best characters, but you don't want to spend too much money? Well, then you're just in luck, because here's what I've been using lately: Lubar.gg, the most affordable and safest in-game purchase discount platform on the market. Lubar.gg offers up to 26% off in-game purchases. Their in-game purchases are 16% cheaper than the official, and 10% cheaper when using their new users coupon. To save on your top-ups, go to Lubar.gg, then choose a bundle, then log into your account in a single-used cloud device. Redeem the pack that you purchased in-game, just like the official top-up, then log out, and your data will be cleared automatically. Now, Lubar.gg is trusted by other content creators like Storn and Seal, and that has a 4.9 rating on Trustpilot alongside a bunch of 5-star reviews. So if you want to save up to 26% off when topping up, go to Lubar.gg by clicking the link in the pinned comments or description. Thus, for his rotation, he's gonna want to use his battle skill to implant a physical susceptibility debuff and a vulnerability stack. Then he's gonna want for his allies to inflict more vulnerability stacks so that he can have an ally like Pogranicznik breach the enemy so that he can do a final strike, use his combo skill to gain a link buff, and then use his ultimate to do a lot more damage and to implant 2 vulnerability stacks in a large AoE. He can also just do a final strike on an enemy with physical vulnerability stacks, use his combo skill to gain a link buff, and then have a DPS like the Administrator use his battle skill to consume the link buff and do a ton of crush damage. Or you can simply do the first rotation and then do the second rotation before the breach debuff from Pogranicznik expires. It's really all just up to you. For skill priorities, you're gonna want to level up his battle skill, then his ultimate, or his basic attacks, or his combo skills. This is because leveling up his battle skill increases his physical susceptibility effect, which increases the entire team's damage, but leveling up his ultimate, basic attacks, and combo skills all increases damage by relatively the same amount. For his gears, he's gonna want the Swordman set because it provides a 20% stagger efficiency bonus, and it does an additional instance of physical damage that does 10 stagger and 250% of the user's attack whenever the user implants a physical status with a cooldown of 15 seconds. This set will synergize extremely well with Lifeng, because Lifeng can do a bunch of stagger with his lifts, so the stagger efficiency bonus and the additional instance of stagger will let him stagger enemies even quicker. For his individual pieces, he's gonna want the Swordmancer heavy armor because it provides a 20 arts intensity bonus, which will increase his lift damage and stagger. He's also gonna want the Swordmancer TAC gauntlets because they provide a basic yet potent 19.2% physical damage bonus. He's also gonna want the Swordmancer flint because it provides another 23% physical damage bonus. And he's also gonna want the Bone Crucia mask because it provides a 41.4% damage bonus versus staggered enemies, which will synergize really well with the fact that Lifeng can do a ton of stagger when lifting the enemies, and because of this set's additional instance of stagger. You can also replace this piece with another Swordmancer flint if you don't think you can consistently capitalize on stagger windows, because it provides a standard and unconditional physical damage bonus. For an alternative, you can use the Bone Crucia set because it provides a 50% attack boost and a decent 30% damage boost for the next battle skill after using a combo skill up to 2 times, which would be really good because this battle skill does a big portion of his damage. For his individual pieces, he's gonna want the Bone Crucia heavy armor T1, the Swordmancer TAC gauntlets because because they provide a standard 19.2% physical damage boost, and 2 Bone Crucian Masks because they provide a total of 82.8% damage versus staggered enemies. For his weapons, he's gonna want the Mountain Bearer because it provides his main attributes: a 43.3% physical damage boost, a 12.8% arts damage bonus for 15 seconds whenever he uses his battle skill on an enemy with vulnerability stacks up to 2 times, and a similar 12.8% arts damage bonus for 15 seconds whenever he uses his battle skill on an enemy without vulnerability stacks up to 2 times. He can also use the Valiant because it provides a similar stat buff, but it also provides a decent attack percentage buff, and it does an additional instance of physical damage when applying a physical status, which will make it so that this weapon only does 2% less team damage than the Mountain Bearer and 5% less personal damage. He can also use the Pathfinder's Beacon because it provides a decent amount of his main attributes, a decent attack boost, and a good attack boost whenever his HP is at 80% or above, which will make it so that this weapon does 24% less team damage and 9% less personal damage. And if you care a lot more about Lifeng's ultimate than his damage, well then the Chimeric Justice will be decent because it provides a decent amount of his secondary attributes and a ton of ultimate gain efficiency. It also provides a decent crit rate buff, and it can also provide a good attack percentage buff if he applies vulnerability onto an enemy that doesn't have vulnerability stacks. For his teams, he'll obviously want to be ran in physical teams where his lifts and physical susceptibility debuffs can work best. He can be used with the Administrator because the Administrator can act as your main DPS that can do powerful crush damage. They can also apply Originium crystals with their combo skill, which makes it so that the enemy takes more physical damage and their ultimate does an extra instance of powerful physical damage. He can also be used with Pogranicznik because Pog can breach enemies to lower the enemy's physical resistances, and he can recover skill points through a multitude of ways, like breaching the enemy with a skill, using his combo skill, or using his ultimate. He can also use Dapan because he can apply a ton of vulnerability stacks, since his battle skill lifts enemies and his ultimate lifts and knocks down enemies. Dapan can also act as a DPS because of his combo skill, which crushes enemies once they reach 4 vulnerability stacks. He can also use Ardelia because she can apply a corrosion debuff or a physical susceptibility debuff that will increase physical damage dealt to enemies. She can also sustain the team because she heals allies with her ultimate and battle skill based on her will. He can also use Shen Shan Yu because she can lift enemies to apply vulnerability stacks with her battle skill and combo skill, which can both easily be activated back to back since you only have to apply a vulnerability stack for her combo skill to activate. Her ultimate and her lifts can also do a decent amount of damage, so she can act as a viable sub DPS. He can also use Akekuri since her ultimate can provide a link buff similar to his combo skill that again can increase his ultimate's damage drastically. She can also generate a bunch of skill points with her ultimate, similarly to Pogranicznik. He can also use Ember since she can lift enemies with her battle and combo skill, and she can provide a ton of sustaining capabilities like healing, protection, shields, and damage reduction with her best sets. For some team compositions, you can run Lifeng with Pogranicznik, Ardelia, or Akekuri since they can all provide supportive benefits like skill point recovery, breaching, corrosion, physical susceptibility, link buffs, or healing. Then you're gonna want the Administrator or Dapan since they can both do powerful crush damage. Then you can use Shen Shan Yu, Dapan, or Ember because they're all pretty good vulnerability inflictors that can apply multiple vulnerability stacks to multiple enemies without consuming them to breach or crush like other physical characters. For his potentials, his P1 increases his physical susceptibility debuff effect, and it spreads its effects onto enemies with 2 or less vulnerability stacks, which will result in around a 5% DPS increase. For his P2, it provides a 15 attribute bonus to all his attributes, which will provide a 10.5% attack boost alongside other mediocre bonuses, which will also result in around a 5% DPS increase. For his P3, it increases the amount of attack percentage his other attributes give by 0.05%, which will typically result in a slightly bigger attack percentage boost, but it'll ultimately be another really mediocre boost that'll increase his DPS by around 3%. For his P4, it reduces the energy cost of his ultimate by 15%, which, unlike most other P4s, will result in a small DPS increase of 3%, which, unlike most other P4s, will result in a small DPS increase of 3%. For his P5, it deals another instance of physical damage that also does stagger when he knocks down enemies with a cooldown of 15 seconds, which will increase his DPS by 12%. Anyways, that's it for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.